Hello everyone. I would like to talk about today of the importance of being aware of how natural phenomena covers a lot of our fantasies. And what that means is that when we see where the fantasy is being produced, it is natural because the human being is a natural expression of this world. When we look at how light brightens up a cloud, we see that the light has nothing to do with the cloud, regardless if it fades or not. It's just that in certain alignments throughout our day, we find our senses of self either being integratively presented in an irrational way where you feel empty, or a sense of infinity comes into one sense of self. So you see that you're not letting go of all the ideas completely to naturally just act, you're actually thinking. So when you're thinking, that one conscious idea is looking at your unconscious. It is, in a sense, fueled by the separations you're considering. It is by you keeping your knowing of how you know how to ride a bike, or how you learn to walk. You keep these naturally with you. You don't keep saying, oh, I wish I could walk better. No, you naturally do it because you have a sense of having done it. There's a sense of knowing that gets rid of any inability. So we want to find the sense of knowing, and what I am suggesting is that when you look for the sense of knowing, there is a you. There's an identity, there's an ego, there's a sense of self that is looking for this, but it will then see that it is not the full picture. So when the idea of us recognizes that it is conceiving our physicality to be separate, the consciousness of man self-reflectively opens up in its ability to observe all experience. So at first you're not just receiving your experience. When you're walking around, any image that is in your awareness is emerged in the light that is lighting up that cloud, In life we have many walks, and there are many ways of walking. And even though if we see someone crawling, you cannot judge it, because if you are stopping to see something else move, your idea is no longer there. What that means is that you see that you are constantly, based on repetition, being who you are. It is the way your environment is. It is, in a way, how you are looking at your spectrum. Because your spectrum creates the senses of reality and the senses of separation, which your next step as an idea will consider. What that means is we see natural phenomena is like us forgetting that the oven is on, right? And suddenly feeling a strange smell. It's like having something that is working regardless of what you consider now. When you see existence works in this ways, you need to, as a separate modality, increase your understanding of your own separation, which cultivates into an observance that doesn't need to be spoken. So you see, it is simply about an attitude at first, which then dissolves the character which the attitude is related to. The individual attitude is coming from. When we see that consciousness is more than inability or ability to consider something that is not fully you, it's as if we are swimming in the ocean and expecting that, we're going to be right there in a few minutes at the end. And in a sense, you see that you make the ocean feel as if you're already there. How would I say this? The ability of your mind to consider life shows it that it is not just the way it thought it was. When you see the concept of learning present, the concept of expansion, you cannot stay limited to a lack of understanding. When you stop having a judgment against another judgment, you can be the space of observance that holds both. And so your mind becomes much more calm and, in a sense, present in its own presence. What I'm trying to say with everything that I've been saying for the past few minutes is that when we look at ourselves and the self that we are judging nature. And when you judge nature, you feel wrong because it is your nature. Because you see that there is a progression, a life progression, regardless of our attitude. So when you pay attention to your life progression, it's actually extremely, how do I say, open. You feel you're shy because you think you're shy, because your thoughts haven't changed based on an experience of stepping out your comfort zone. When you do this, your mind opens. Every human being in any stage of their life is a bridge. And what that means is that there are certain things that look at you and there are certain things you look at. And so consciousness has a bridge through human communication to explore itself through more collective methods. It is as if this energy that began at the surface of the earth in bacteria, developed into life form and now is not done. There's so much more of the ocean left, so we're just enjoying the water and how awesome it feels to float. So this reality is actually not one of torture. It is only torturous when you are locked in an idea you feel you cannot look beyond. When you have an idea you feel you cannot look behind, you either haven't used Google properly or you have not sat down among life and to see it, to see how it's relevant to you. A lot of the ideas which you think you know because you're like, I don't like it, I like it, you have not looked at. Because experiencing something does not create room for a structured thought to analyze. And what I mean by that is that the only reason we can even speak is because we're not acting fast enough. Because at our higher speed, man's intelligence no longer needs to be verbalized and becomes as natural as the silence of the tree. We think the trees are not, moving. But they're only showing this aspect where you see, once you have a multidimensional acknowledgement of things, it is not just that you are projecting your hologram to see things that way. You are, in a sense, observing the design of your life, the design of how you're looking at things and where you are by simply completely being transparent in how you're being aware of it. And transparent awareness is nothing a thought can do. Transparent awareness is actually that moment where you're perhaps waiting for something, sitting on the bench, looking at someone else move when you are more framed in a static idea. Reality is mainly focused on different views that are simply being shaped by your allowance. What that means is that, let's say I am a confident person or someone who can see through the keyhole and in a sense know what's going to be present in that room. Our understanding of things is at first dirty to us because we have a sense of clean. In other words, the caveman probably didn't know how to use a fork because it didn't have a fork, because that moment of life was not created for that level of sensitivity that we have now today, So we see we cannot even judge other people in different spaces and times that we have not existed in. You have not been in the circumstance that has shaped a human being, so why are you judging that human being? And you see one of those human beings that you're judging is yourself. So based on how clear your idea looks to another idea, through an idea, you are getting a sense that you are comfortable enough to accept this as the truth of the moment. But the truth of the moment, once you're static, is in essence dynamic. That is why it is empty. It doesn't leave a trace in a sense, because it is constantly changing. It is going from an ordered view in the glimpse of perhaps man's pencil to, in a sense, diving into the chaotic unknown. This is like very key. You see, you think your consciousness is experiencing things in a limited space and time, where this sense of space and this sense of time is real. This is how your mind is looking at itself. But that is the thing, because if you are within an expansive universe, and a universe that is expanding, you see that there is a beauty in that emptiness, in that space. How would I say it? You're not limited to your experience of a certain thought. You're only limited if your attention is on frames where reality is based on certain memories. The act of remembrance at times brings a lot of awareness for people, because it connects the dots, but at the same time brings a sense of who you really are to the sense of what you think you are. If someone comes and asks, that tree, this nature, life looks free, but I don't feel free. How do I figure this out? Well, you need to again see that your understanding of life is coming from a combination of natural phenomena which you have no control over, similar to how your face looks when you're born. And also you have a sense of calculation which is developed naturally. In other words, do not have anything against science or, technology. Even mechanical technology, don't have anything against it. Because if you ignore that technology, you will not be able to improve it. If you ignore something and thinking that your life is better, no, it's still there. It's as if there's a tiger, in your living room, and you're like, sure, ignore it. No, it's still there. It's roaming in the kitchen, You better know how to run. So, when you look at your mind running things differently, you see that you are not just this. You see that the part of you that thinks is so evolved and is so advanced and is more advanced than the animal who has come up with a language to describe itself in more advanced ways, that part of you gets absorbed into the natural phenomena that has even sprouted a life form. There is a sense of emptiness because you have observed the duality in your thought. So once the hero and the villain are hanging out in the same, coffee shop, they are not limited to one aspect, one side, because you have seen the other side. Why do you think the Dalai Lama very kindly tells people to be compassionate, to act compassionate? Because it does not at times even matter with what you think. It is simply of the manner of action you're doing and the authenticity of the act. And if you do random acts of kindness to people, you will see that you are creating your stepping stone into a less of an individuated reality. When the billionaire goes and shakes the homeless person's hand, that is when both of them have an ability and their imagination expands in a sense consciously. You see that they are both acknowledging the polarities. And sometimes people have not acknowledged the reality of these polarities because we are still human beings. We can still mentally become dysfunctional regardless of how functional we have been in the physical world or in physical reality. What that means is that you need to maintain your sense of judgment by allowing yourself to see both sides of the spectrum. So what that means is that if you're judging yourself being the worst person, you better look at the best person too. Because depression and stress occurs when you do not look at the other side of the spectrum. And this goes both ways. So there are people who just do completely good, ignoring the bad. You will get stressed out because you will see you feel so good, but eventually you cannot ignore the darkness in this world. Just as we cannot ignore nighttime. So what that means is that even you, who you think you are in a sense, perhaps in value above certain human beings who've done lesser action, or above certain beings who don't even have self-awareness, like animals and plants. If you feel you're above yourself, you need to, for a second, breathe. And see that what is us at first able to be compared to animals is the shape of the human being. Then ask yourself if the shape of the ability of what you can do as a point of attention within this existence, see if you are truly limited. In other words, if you are about to go in a Western duel, make sure your gun has bullets, okay? And in a sense, what I mean by that is that playfully be aware of the foundations of where you stand. So if I ask you what color the floor is, you better know. And you can see that the expression that you are is a natural ability to feel unnatural. And even then, you're still natural. So recognize that what I am saying is a focus on how certain people are caught in certain mental games when looking at self-awareness. So what I'm saying, it does not apply to every scenario. It only applies to the scenario in which it originated from. So when you see that the end is not the beginning, you are not even close to the end. Once you see the vastness of your being, and if you still have an idea, in other words, if you see vastness of your being and you want to talk about it, you still haven't seen it. Because there's a level of seeing something which it transcends overwhelmment and dissolves into the knowing action that is creating such a thing in front of you, such a vision in front of you. So what I mean by this is that you need to allow yourself to see that the nature of all that you can perceive is at first covered by the nature of thought, which is elusive to itself, because a thought that can create a thought is never that thought, but at the same time is the creator of it. The magnificence of exploring reality is simply letting go of all form into the formless expression and, in a sense, a very beautiful omniscience of nature, the nature of life. Life is not something which You even talk about too much. You perceive that all that you are doing now is a beautiful co-creation within a very holistic universe. I hope this talk was helpful. I feel it might be slightly still a bit confusing. I feel it's not clear yet. I'm going to continue talking a bit more actually. Let's think of it this way. I am a person walking right now. When I am walking, I am in a sense changing where I am aware of things. Now, because I'm changing location. And as I'm walking, I'm seeing different people, different things. Now as I'm walking, if I stop and just look at one person, when I have a long way to go, I see that the more I'm there, the more in a sense, my attention gets drawn to a certain range of reality which I don't need to be stuck in. And when I say this, I mean, you're not really stuck in anything, but you do have problems because we are people, and people have problems, but they also have the ability to handle these problems. And when you have 100% ability to 100% handle any problem, it is naturally like a wheel. It is cyclical. And so we can see that we as natural beings on this planet have the ability to follow the cycles of existence, to in a sense emanate them. So that one branch of my memory of a very intense experience can communicate, at another time where I'm having a very subtle experience. Our memory gives us an ability to work with different intensities because our focus simply creates the intensity based on what it knows. And there is no knowing that is wrong. The knowing of the villain is as right as the knowing of the hero. But the awareness of both is less. Because the villain's awareness is actually less aware of sentient beings. But the hero's awareness is more aware to sentient beings. And so that is why, because we're sentient beings, we like the hero, but there is no judgment we can give. It is not that one human being should be condemned in their decision-making than another human being. And when I say decision-making, it's not in a sense the decision, it's actually the sense of feeling you have before you make the decision. That sense of feeling is a natural expression. It comes from the environment and from your internal environment, which is a recollection. So the feeling to make a decision is never wrong. It's just natural. It's just not observed enough. That is why you made that decision. So if I am judged, if I am given or thrown into a condition where I feel I cannot get out of, what I immediately do is stop and recognize that if I am stressed down, that if I am angry or in a state of fear, I will continue creating things that will manifest that state more. So I stop, and you see, if you've made a mistake, if you're in a situation you can't get out, the first thing is you maintain your breath, your breathing, and you really make your physical body comfortable. And you make your mental body comfortable by ignoring everything else and prioritize just looking at the thing you have done wrong. When you look at the thing you've done wrong, it's important because you need to have an ability to concentrate, because the more you see the thing you done wrong, the more you need to confront the things that you didn't do. And it's important. So confront the situation you're in as clearly as possible. And it is not for you. It's not a judgment thing. It's not a feeling thing. It's just you want to have the clearest outline and idea of what your situation is in the present moment. Become aware of that present moment. And as your body is comfortable, as your breathing is harmonious, and then you look at the situation, you see that the answers are simple because your state of being is functioning very naturally and simply. Now, after that, begin valuing it, not from your eyes, but from the eyes of the person you have done wrong. Try to clearly see what the person, or in a sense, the situation you're in, how is the situation looking at you, and how are you looking at the situation. Once you have looked at this, you in a sense see that the fear, the ideas that got you into the state of fear, the state of incapability at first, when you first had the situation come to you, in a sense, had nothing to do with it. It's like your reaction to it crippled you. So I'm saying get out of that cripple, and in a sense, like get out of that view of disadvantage and be in a view of advantage. And a view of advantage is one that is aware of both sides. So think of this metaphor. Back in the day when there was war, they said, war, how would I say it? When two armies met, the one who came there first perhaps, or had the advantage, was the one who had the upper ground, the higher ground. Now in this modern world, we're not fighting, we don't have wars, and we don't need to think war is a bad thing. War is just natural confrontation. You know, what is a massacre to one sense of being, you know, is not, in a sense, a massacre to another sense of being. Because when water dissolves those ants, when you turn on your hose, are you bothered? No, you're bothered by your immediate sense of reality, you know. So in a state of calmness, look at your situation and take the higher ground by observing both sides. The person who can see both sides of the dilemma and in a sense be comfortable in both outcomes is then someone who, how do I say it, is someone who, you have the higher ground, your observance is greater. The next action you need to do, if you're in a sense, you've observed both sides, you've seen your situation, and you've got a clarity of your situation which you didn't have before when you had a state of fear. Clarity dissolves fear, by the way. I mean, I'm pretty sure many people have seen this throughout their life, you know. So, the next step would be to communicate. And you will realize that the only way, once you have had an ability to observe both sides and see a solution to fix the problem, is human communication. So the way you communicate as a human being is very important. But because you're aware of both situations, you have suddenly become aware of what you have done wrong. So with that understanding, if you're in a situation where you have wronged someone, where you have done something wrong, let yourself get a release from that illusion and in a sense go and be authentic and see that if you have accidentally, you know, spilled someone's coffee, you'd go buy them a new one. You look at who you are, and you see that that sense can redeem itself by simply bringing a greater redemption to others around you. So I'll kind of simplify this because I need to actually Once you have found the authenticity to confront your problem or situation completely, clearly, and in a way from both views by seeing in your eyes and the eyes of other, then the next action is human communication. So hopefully by this time you have understood a method, or perhaps you have perceived that through seeing or the situation and observing it more deeply, you're getting more understanding of how the other person could feel. So you, in a sense, go and communicate, and through human communication, bring a balance out of that situation. Go simply communicate the lack you have and communicate how it would be an advantage if there was a certain shift. And say what you have to say. Be calm, but do not be angered. Speak as if you have a flower in your hand when you go through any situation, because that is a calm being, and a calm being exudes nothing but a sense of wholeness, a sense of safety, and in a sense calmness. You're aware of your environment, you're acknowledging people as who they are, and in a sense not as what you think they are based on a limited range of knowing. So after communication has been done, action will follow, and your life will continue in the way it must. Natural phenomena is present. Through our sense of being static, we give ourselves an ability to look through many lenses of the same space and time that is a part of our consideration which we haven't looked at. So we all know the earth is here, we just haven't explored everywhere. So we want to keep a sense of journey within our mind and in how we are becoming aware of the moment constantly. The beauty of reality is one that doesn't judge itself, because it's continuing, it's progressing, it's carrying out its walk. And when you carry out your walk and you recognize you've been walking, you don't get tired. You actually see you chose the journey, not just because of the end, because the whole journey would give you the proper ending. And that means that do not leave your fascination behind in certain periods of your life where you felt fascinated. Your sense of fascination must come immediately now, where it doesn't matter if I'm looking at perhaps the next design of the greatest technology of man, or the simple design on a leaf, and how everything among the presence of the plant is gentle in its design. Take yourself further by looking far, by seeing that you do not even know how great you can be. That's how great you are in this lifetime. That the peak of it, you can't even know how great you are, But you know how great you can be, in a sense, because who takes a step on a staircase, the first step, and doesn't acknowledge it when he's gotten to the last? And once you walk, let yourself dissolve into presence by not having your attention on words that distract. Much blessings and namaste.